Right. Good morning, USA. Welcome to Wisdom's Chats Wednesday. As I was saying, our third Wisdom's Chat session for the day, but the first in the US. Although we've had a US visitor on the first two today, which is always great. So good to be with you. So today we also multinational. So a couple from the US, triple from South Africa, and one from the UK currently. So across the globe, we stretch with wisdoms. Is it real or is it virtual? That's the topic today. What's virtual reality? So to me, this is reality. To some, it might be virtual. And when BJ is arguing with her Zoom, it could be virtual frustration. I'm not too sure, but we will just have to see if we can untangle this. So virtual reality, is it a positive thing or is it a negative thing in your life? Do you see it becoming something of significance going forward in the world? So I think that's what we're going to chat about today. So
obviously
yes.
This is virtual because we're on a computer screen. I'm not physically with you.
That's right. But is it reality? That's the real question. I think it probably is. But okay, good. So BJ, virtual reality, does it figure in your life at all?
There was a time, yes. My life was all about reality. It was living in the moment, in the day, in the hour, in the present. As one ages, things take on a different perspective and different meaning.
How so?
Well, you get a little wiser, you get a little more learned, you
Mhm,
get a little more experienced.
mhm.
It's reality to me. I mean, it depends on how philosophical I'm assuming that you wish to be, or in the time space continuum, if how big you want to take that discussion. I'm a pretty common sense individual, so reality is right here at the moment in the time. It can be an ideology. It can be the reality. There's a quote that I always used to use in my coaching, and it was the universal law of life. For me, that's a reality. Universal law of life are those things that just time proven, time given, never change. They're common sense. Like there's just some things in life you can't change. There's some things in life you can't control. There's just some things in life that is going to go this way or that way. And there's another universal law of life that says you can't get blood out of a turnip. So why are you trying so hard to get something that isn't there? So for me, reality is, again, it's a mixture of things. To be real, I'm pretty plain spoken. I'm pretty real. I'm pretty right here, right now. So I don't know. Virtual reality, as far as tech goes, kind of scares me. And again, that is, I'm going to kind of tell you, that's kind of based on my age right there too, because I think I've mentioned this here before. I think we're kind of getting a little too big for our britches. I mean, is it important that we always strive and try and outdo ourselves? But at the same time, we've got to keep forward. We've got to keep moving forward. We can't just stay where we are. Time progresses, business progresses, people, things and change. I mean, many of you already know about every 10, 15 years, there's a whole change in philosophy and dress and manner and everything 20x. There you go. That's it right there. That's it, Trevor. So I think virtual reality is here to stay, and I do think that some people will be will be taking huge advantage of that. You already see it in gaming, in the gaming world, the virtual Oculus. And I have to tell you, that fascinates the devil out of me. You know, my youth wants to get involved in that. I kind of am a little gamer of sorts. I like doing that kind of stuff. But the sheer science and the sheer technology and the sheer possibility of where this could lead does scare me a little bit. It's like cloning. You know, I mean, is that a good thing or is it a bad thing? In some areas, it's good. In some areas, I can see where it's going to be devastating. So in virtual reality, where do we take it? How do we harness it to the good and not our detriment? It's kind of a scary thing for me at the moment. I'm not shying away from it, but it does kind of make me stand up and pay attention a little bit. Ivan, I don't know what more I can say about that.
No, that's
wary.
great. Thanks. Well, yeah, that's what we had a chat about to see. So just want to say welcome to Sean and welcome back to Ish. Glad to have you guys with us. So Sean, you may have picked up, we're chatting about virtual reality and you know, what role it has to play, if it has a role to play in our lives going forward, and whether it has a role currently. And yeah, we just we'll go around the group and just hear people's thoughts and ideas on the topic. So I'll get to you guys shortly. But David, yeah. Your thoughts? Any impact on your life thus far, or do you foresee anything happening with virtual reality in your realm?
Oh, geez. I know like on computers, it's getting more and more advanced so that it's the virtual, movie is getting to be more realistic. You know, they have games, these video games out where I guess you can be like surrounded in this and see natural scenes and have sound effects and everything else. But I don't think, however you may try to make virtuality realistic, I don't think you can ever make it reality, because reality is where we actually are here and now. I'm not in the UK like some of you. I'm over in the United States, so I mean, I can be talking with you through the wires across the ocean, but that doesn't mean I'm actually there. And certainly this is the next best thing to being there, but it's not being there.
See, for me, that's that time-space continuum thing. Yeah, we're in real time, but the space difference is that we're virtual. So that's the time-space thing, you know. It just and I will admit, you know, when I was a kid, I think I've mentioned this a couple of times. When I was a kid, I lived in South Missouri. I lived in the Ozarks, grew up, born and raised. And I spent much of my youth at Silver Dollar City, which is the big amusement attraction for the Midwest. And even back 40, oh gosh, BJ, maybe 50 years ago.
You were pretty young back then.
Yeah, showing my age right there. But about 50 years ago, they had an amusement ride. And you were talking about sound effects and illusions and things. 50 years ago, they had this submarine that went down in the bottom of the Lake of the Ozarks, around the bottom, and they were hunting for treasure and gold and all kinds of things. And the seats you sat on actually moved, and you had surround sound, and you heard the bubbles, and you heard the submarine motors moving, and you actually, there were some people in the audience who actually got seasick. So that it was in essence virtual reality, and that was 50 years ago. So is that a good thing? I mean, have we gone? We have gone. Technology has taken it to a higher level.
BJ, what
Well, go ahead.
what I believe No, I've got a thought, which I believe is fascinating, but is gonna be true if not now, maybe a decade from now. That is virtual holidaying. It may not be for a long trip, maybe an hour-long vacation, wearing your VR headset, and then everything being virtual, the environment, and you being maybe taking a stroll on a beach somewhere in US, being here in India in a big long room. We
Mm.
already have seen that with things in tides. You can experience the ocean there in a water park.
Yeah,
Now
see, Ivan's
imagine
got it up
walking in
there
that
right
water
now.
park wearing the VR.
Ivan's got it up right now. That's a virtual reality right there.
You can
Right,
see it and
right.
hear it, but you
Now,
can't smell it or feel it.
no,
Yeah, it's interesting. So yeah,
that is possible,
mm,
David. That is possible now.
It is. It
it
It is
is.
is.
possible.
It
You
Wait,
can
wait,
pick
whoa,
the
is.
whoa.
in a room.
What's
You can
possible?
pick the smell is possible. You can have all the sense available. It would not. You would be in a closed room, but when you wear the VR headsets, you're not in a closed room anymore.
Mm.
So I
What
can
you
smell the
view in
flower
front of
through
you,
the.
absolutely you can. All they have to do is they have to push the scent out when you are approaching near the flower, and the scent would become stronger and stronger as you
Oh,
approach
that's
near.
crazy.
If you
Yeah, no,
the
it's
the
truly
best the best
amazing.
example is the 5D and the 7D movies that you have. If you sit on the chair, they'll give you a 3D glass. It's not a VR one, and you feel every kind of, you feel the water droplet on you. You feel the air blowing through your legs. Everything is all visible. Now replace that 3D glass with a VR headset, and when you're walking with all those things flowing across you, you'll feel like walking on the beach.
Yeah, amazing where it's going. So
I,
thanks,
I
Ish.
I don't remember where I saw that. I think it is already, I believe it was in the Ramoji Film City in Hyderabad. I saw something around there that they were promoting something relating to VR, but the desk was closed, so I could not talk to them. It was something similar that they were promoting, that you can experience the beach while sitting here in India. Something like that they were promoting, but I could not inquire it that day to take more understanding. But I believe it's gonna happen more and more as we progress through it, and it becomes more viable.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Thanks for that, Ish. So yeah, I want to pop across to Trevor quickly now, because I recall a year or two ago, he sat on a virtual reality machine and wound up screaming like a little girl. So, you know, it was pretty real to him at that time. So Trevor, maybe you want to tell us about that one.
So I can't remember which machine you're talking about, but my daughter is involved in the virtual reality world and the development of all these programs and working with things like this as the Oculus. Now, BJ, as you were talking, I'm reminded I first took my family across to the States. It was a dream of ours to actually get into Disney World. So yeah, from in the bush in South Africa. And this must have been about 40 odd years ago. So it would have been the early 90s. Yeah, very early 90s. And we were absolutely amazed to get in there in Orlando into the Epcot Center. And I remember that Epcot Center getting into the ride and lining up in these queues. There were about 90-minute, 2-hour queues. And we bumped into a couple of Americans there, and we were having a chat to them, and they were asking, "Hey, where are you from? You know, are you from England?" Because we sounded like foreigners. So I had to quickly shut them up that we were from the tip of Africa, and they were amazed, and they said, "Well, you've taken all the trouble to get here." Disney World had been going in for, I don't know, about 10 odd years, and they were from Daytona, just 90 minutes down the drag, and they had never taken the trouble to actually get to Disney World, and that we had traveled about 6,000 kilometers to get up there. But once we got into the Epcot Center, we got into a roller coaster. And it took us up this Epcot Center, like, up the rail, and it was so advanced. And we saw how homes in America had grown from almost candle power cooking to microwave ovens, can you believe? And so we learned that whole story. And then about 18 months later, I took my family back again. Because we wanted to do a repeat trip. My granddaughter was now 10 and we all went off again. And I must tell you, the virtual reality shows now in Disney and in Universal Studio are unbelievable. Let me tell you, there was a travel program where they strap you in a roller coaster, but I mean a super duper coaster, where you go at the rate of knots and you fly around the world. You dive into oceans, you fly over the Victoria Falls, you get to see the 7 wonders of the world, you touch them with your nose, you smell them, they spray things at you. It is unbelievable. And then David had the cheek to put down there that he doesn't believe in this virtual environment, and asked him the question, am I virtually in your room? And he comes back and says, yes, I am. I think we are so damn close to being holograms in other people's rooms through the Zoom facility with this, and we haven't explored the potential of this in a global way. I think we are just touching it on this Wisdom's Chats type format as to how we can start communicating and looking into the eyes of other individuals. Yeah, Ed, you've had your lunchtime drink, I can see. I've had my lunchtime swim, that's why my eyes are red. I think we are so close to virtually being in each other's offices and presences that we can build global business right from our own home locations. I'm so excited about this opportunity. Thank goodness I'm only 32, BJ. I don't have the trouble that you've got. And God willing, we can live on this planet for another 30 to 50 years and more, and then they can, the 20x exponential curve will have discovered immortality for all of us. So we can stick around and play on this virtual roller coaster that's coming along. I'm excited about these times.
Thanks, Trevor. So roll on the matrix by the sounds of things in your life. So yeah, I don't know, plug you into the machine and away you go. Anyway, so Sean, welcome for the first time. Glad you're here. I think you've got the gist of the way we roll here. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, no, hi guys. Thanks so much for having me. Sean here from the UK. It's really interesting, isn't it? How Trevor, you're talking about holograms in your room to have meetings, and do you know what? The speed of how things have moved forward in even the last decade. It wouldn't surprise me if it's going to be sort of very close. And like you say, we're scratching the surface, aren't we, with the Zoom meetings? I can certainly see that we won't need a computer to be able to have a virtual conversation in years to come. Looking at the virtual reality world, we're part of that world today, aren't we? We're all sat here. I've got people, from what I can gather, there's people in different continents around the world. And you're all in my dining room on my little laptop screen here, and we're all very, very close together. So there's some real positive messages being given out with the technology growth, and obviously and how that's adapting our lives. Because let's be honest, for us, there's 8 of us. For us 8 to be able to do this all together, we'd all have to be making huge arrangements, wouldn't we, to actually meet in one particular place, somewhere central for us all to access each other as we are today. So yeah, no, I'm really excited about what the opportunities lie ahead. But I think business has changed, and certainly the mentality towards business has changed since lockdown has come in, and we've all been sort of pushed onto the video screens. And now I think we're going to see, as things unfold around the world and things relax around the world with the COVID issues, I think you're going to see a blend of the face-to-face as well as this type of environment where we can all get together without actually getting jet lagged at all to meet each other. So now that's my viewpoint on it.
Great, thanks, Sean. Yeah, it is interesting, and I mean, already I think a few years back, I think Microsoft piloted their hologram technology with seamless translation, so you can actually have a presenter standing on a stage in the UK talking to a group of people in Japan, speaking their language as the presenter speaks English on the stage. So that technology is actually with us already, and it's happening. So Ed, virtual reality running through the desert. I'm sure you must space out and go somewhere strange when you're running 350 kilometers through the desert. But whether that's virtual or reality, I'm not too sure.
I think it's interesting actually, because you know I've got a love of dictionaries. So I looked up the words, and reality is the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to that which is imaginary. And virtual is almost or nearly as described, but not completely, which I think is the thing. And then I looked up virtual reality on Wikipedia, and it says virtual reality is a simulated experience that can be similar to or completely different from the real world. Well, that was very helpful, wasn't it? But I don't think you could actually make and I think we haven't talked about augmented reality, which is something that I think is really brilliant. But I don't think we can ever totally recreate the experience. We can certainly get somewhere near it, because you ask someone who's been waterboarded whether they thought they were drowning, and they'll probably say yes. And you could probably get it so that I could run on a treadmill with the the view of the Kalahari, but I wouldn't experience the heat unless I turned my heating up. I wouldn't feel the wind, and I wouldn't feel the change in the ground, and I wouldn't feel the change in my movement through the environment. So I don't think you can ever totally recreate the natural world. And there are two reasons for that. One is that computers are digital. The world is analog.
Yeah.
And also to create the program, you need someone to interpret what's important to put into that program and how much detail. And then you've got this whole thing about, when you stick a frog in cold water and heat it up, it doesn't jump out. You put it in hot water, it does jump out. How big do you make those increments in that digital world? Because in the real world, it's analog. And I think that's the essential. Yeah, I think it's really exciting. I've been to a place where I've looked at a Bronze Age settlement, and with the augmented reality, you can see the whole building, you can see the people moving about, you can smell the fires, the hog roast, not the great thing if you're a vegan, and you can experience the whole thing. But what I didn't experience was the grass between my feet. So yeah, I think it's really exciting, and I love all this technology. The fact, we've got people from the UK, France, America, South Africa, and India all on the same call, all sharing the same ideas, but it will never, ever be the same as the analog world.
I completely agree.
Yeah, well, and to that point, Edward, about feeling the environment as you are actually experiencing it, and with technology, companies like Peloton, who is the exercise equipment thing, they now have the virtual reality background. You can run through the Kalahari, you can run through a rainforest, you can now run up a mountain, and you have the background, and you get and as you're going through the elevations, the technology allows you to raise the platform you're running on, actually raises or lowers according to the elevation of the ground that you're going on.
But you don't get the sand in your shoes or the shifting from side to side. So you can't.
Or the breeze. Yeah, exactly. And the smell.
Well, you might be surprised that you might wind up with blisters anyway on a VR machine if you're not careful. But yeah, so Yi, welcome. You've been bouncing in and out a little bit. You had some challenges with your phone, but you're with us now.
I'm not sure what's happening. Too much crap in it, I think. I don't know. I had an experience doing, the goggly thing with the virtual reality.
Goggly things.
The virtual reality. With the Apollo, is that Apollo? I don't remember the number. Apollo 19. That goes up into the, well, it's a very different sort of feeling. And I was only looking at the images, but I have not felt the the rumbling of the engine and all that. But it was real enough that I actually found myself following the movement of the rocket.
That's an interesting thing too. That yes, that's a whole new virtual reality dimension, isn't it?
Well, for me, it was my first time. So it was kind of weird because, like, after you take off the goggles, you kind of feel like you've run on the treadmill for a long time, and then all of a sudden you stop and your body still wants to move. Feeling. So that's like my little experience with virtual reality. I would love to do more, but
I want to answer Trevor's question here. How accurate are commercial airline flight simulators? I can actually speak to that a little bit. My brother became a helicopter pilot. He is in the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and he earned his helicopter license, his pilot license, through simulators. And well, he actually did it in real time as well. But I can tell you, experiencing that simulator with him as he was training, I don't know what you call it, the background, the technology, everything was in 3D. So you actually got to see what a goose looks like as it's approaching you. You actually got to see the waves of an ocean, or the currents of a river, or the tops of oak trees. And it looked like you were truly looking down on some of that stuff. So as far as it being real, I think it's about as real as you can get without actually being in the chopper itself. I was blown away by how the sense of how real it is. And as he come into the airport, of course, helicopters land differently than airplanes, but to actually come into this place and then actually see yourself lowering, feel it. I mean, you almost could feel it. The gravitational pull, it was coming down. So I can't speak to all simulators, but I do know that one that he was using was, in my opinion, about as real as it could be. It was great. I loved it.
Thanks, BJ. Right, Lee, you've been sitting quietly in your corner, virtually or really, I'm not too sure, but yeah, what are your thoughts on it?
So quiet. I've been so good listening to everyone. I find this subject fascinating, and I did a little bit of research before we started the chat. And through lockdown, so Ish, to your point about going on holiday, there has been a boom during lockdown of people buying virtual reality goggles and signing up for apps. And you must listen to their stories. They tell you, I went to Paris. I walked on the beach in so-and-so. They were there. They experienced it. Whether obviously they know it's virtual, but their experience of it was so real that they felt they went on holiday. They went on these adventures because they experienced it in such a real way. And it's the technology has now got to the point where, previously, and maybe in developing countries like South Africa, the goggles are still quite expensive and so on, but they're getting cheaper and cheaper, like all technology, and soon we'll all be having our own and we can go on holidays wherever we want. That's just from an entertainment point of view. and we were saying, yes, it's not real. They make the point that Edward's making, and David said the same. You're not smelling, you're not experiencing, you don't have the grass between your toes. But on the other hand, and my daughter experienced this a lot in Europe, you know, you have this vision of, oh, I'm going to see the Mona Lisa, or I'm going to see, you know, a famous piece of art along with 5 million other people. And so you have your 30 seconds or 20 seconds of this. Whereas virtually, I can be there and I can experience it without 50 million people. So there are those advantages. The other thing that I've seen read now, and it's obviously happening more and more, is training through virtual reality. So one of the things that's happened in Australia is they spent $100,000, so that's not a small amount of money, developing a virtual reality training program for vets to be able to learn how to understand cattle behavior, to know how to read cattle behavior, and to know how to handle cattle in a particular way. They make it clear that it doesn't replace the real experience, but the mistakes that they make in the field are far less because they've actually worked it through in the virtual world. And you were talking about hot and cold. So this is the other thing, is that they've found that if they show burn victims, they put the virtual reality and they show scenes of snow, they feel cooler. And they're actually using the virtual reality now to, when they change their dressings, to manage the pain of those who are going through burns. So, and why it is so real, and this is where the virtual reality is so effective, is that the technology is that when we talk about this as virtual, it's not in the same, it's not virtual reality in the same way, because our eyes are seeing it as two-dimensional, as a screen. But when you have the goggles on, you're actually have two different, Trevor will be able to speak to it better because his daughter does that, right? So I'm just learning, I'm telling you all my exciting stuff I'm learning, right? You got two, like our eyes are picking up two images and then translating them in our brain, so is the virtual reality. So our brain is actually reading the image as reality. And so basically what they're saying is that it is reality to our brain. And the only thing at the moment that makes us feel like we are not quite in that world is the goggles themselves, that we can actually feel the goggles. Mm-hmm. But as these goggles also increase in technology, they're going to get smaller and smaller and lighter until we're not aware that we actually have these goggles on. And then how are we going to really know what is real and what is virtual? So
great, thanks, Lee. Yeah, well, the reality is we're virtually at the end of our session, so we've come to the bottom now. But just before we go, very quickly, I just want to wrap it up from my perspective with this thought. Virtual reality works on exactly the same principles as visualization does. Now, if you look into visualization and how it's used by athletes and others to increase their performance ability and their skill levels, it's all about tricking the brain at the end of the day. You give the brain the right messages, it believes it's real. If it believes it's real, it's going to be able to repeat it. So at the end of the day, these things are integrally linked. And what we're seeing with our eyes is not actually necessarily what's out there. It's what our eyes and our brain are interpreting as being out there. Yeah, you can always be fooled. So don't be fooled. Anyway, let's see where it takes us. So Lee, any thoughts for a topic for next week's session after this? Where do we go from virtual reality?
So I was thinking about, so what is our attitude or perception about the future? How do we actually feel about what we think is lying ahead? So yeah, it'd be interesting to hear your perspectives on how are you feeling about the future?
All right, fantastic. So hope you have a great attitude and a great future until we see you next week, Wednesday, same time, same place, same Zoom call. And we'll join you then. But if you want to join us on one of the other calls, you're more than welcome. As I say, every weekday morning, 8 a.m. GMT +2, every Wednesday 3 times, 8 a.m. GMT +2, 8 a.m. BST, British Standard Time, and 8 a.m. Central Time on a Wednesday. So 3 sessions on a Wednesday,
I'm totally
all at 8
confused now.
a.m., just virtually in different parts of the world. So, we can go wherever we want. So do you want to add something in there, Lee?
I think we're GMT +1 now, aren't we?
No, we don't change. UK changes. So it's BST. That's why I said BST. So it's 8 a.m. GMT +2, which is South African Standard Time. We don't change our time zones. Everybody else in the world messes around with time. We just keep it simple because otherwise it confuses the heck out of us. Britain's just changed over on the weekend to GMT +1. So they're just an hour behind us now. So 8 a.m. BST, which is British Standard Time or Daylight Saving Time, and 8 a.m. Central Time, which is somewhere in the middle of that big island that floats somewhere over there on the other side of the pond.
Yeah, somewhere over there. I do want to.
And they're very confused about their time zones because I was looking up some of the time zones earlier trying to work out what the heck's going on. And
I know. Well, we even have 4 different time zones here in the States, and none of them are on the same either. So it's extremely confusing.
I was looking at Canada. They go from GMT -2.5 to GMT -7. So I mean, work that one out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! We need to go universal. Yeah, we need to go universal. Good grief!
Oh, well, Ed and I are going GNT. So couple of this, and I just sign in every hour, and every now and then I get on board a program like that.
I just want to remind everybody, your Partnerships USA Central call is coming up at 10 a.m. Central, which is 4 p.m. UK time, and that is 6 p.m. No, 5 p.m. Okay, 5 p.m. in South Africa. So if you haven't registered, would love to have you come in. We've been growing in our numbers on the calls. Ish is always there. David's been showing up. Yi has been coming. Edward always comes in. So everybody, thank you so much for coming in and supporting and doing what you do for helping us out here in the States and your partnerships. So hopefully we'll see you later.
Super. Thanks everyone. Thanks BJ. Have a great week. Enjoy it and
enjoy Easter.
Yeah. Yep.
Yes,
Thank
happy
you.
Easter, everyone.
Yeah, happy Easter. Cheers.
Happy Easter. Bye for now.